Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another fun filled episode of Vacuum Exposition. I, of course, am Carl, and I am here to bring you another fantastic episode with, well, another very different vacuum cleaner that we have not seen yet before. Now, for those that tuned in last week, or for those that are just tuning in this week, last week I did advertise a couple of vacuums that I do currently have for sale on the video, and if need be, definitely check the link down below. I'll link to my eBay store so that if you too want a vacuum from the Constellation Carl collection, that is where you can find it. Now, throughout the next few months, I will be slowly going through some stuff that's in my storage units that, well, I just can't keep around anymore. It has taken up too much space, and storage is expensive. So I need to get moving on some of the stuff that I have duplicates of, or stuff that just doesn't interest me. So that's what we will be doing for in terms of collection and everything. Now that doesn't stop me from getting things. I acquire vacuums kind of often, and there's always more coming in. So either way, I do need to make space for new stuff to come in. So if you're looking for something old, in particular, definitely go check out there. You never know what I'm going to come up with. Could be a Kenmore canister. It could be a Kirby. So hard to say what exactly is going to come up, but um, for those that tuned in, yep, those convertibles at the time of filming are still available. So, and of course, there are other things on my page as well. Now, kind of going off of the theme from last week, we discussed a very cool 1998 Electrolux that was made in Sweden and then exported over to Japan, was used in Japan, and then imported back to the United States. And that was all done by my good friend Jared. He has contributed a lot to the channel. This week, no different. We have a vacuum that is in from another good friend of mine that we'll talk about, well, in the video. So, without further ado, let's get on to our video for today and take a look at another really cool one. Well, everybody, we have got a vacuum that I have been trying to get my hands on for a very, very long time now. It is not the brightest or showiest vacuum cleaner, but trust me, this is something very special that we have to look at today. So, what do we have here? Well, looks like a vacuum. No, but in all seriousness, this is a quite of a interesting design, and I've kind of recently been really turned on to these because, well, vacuum cleaners have all types of shapes and sizes in terms of how big or small they are, but they also have different methods of dust and debris collection. What we're looking at today is a 1981 Rainbow Model D3 canister. This is also with the newer Rainbow design power nozzle that came out in 1981. Previous to this, they were using a Eureka made one, so there was a partnership. Now, Rainbow was a division off of the Rexair Corporation. They used a griffin, I believe, is what their emblem used to be before they became Rainbow. They primarily promoted themselves as another one of those sanitizer type vacuum cleaners that you would, well, fill up the water basin with water and then utilize the suction power of the vacuum in order to purify the water, kind of like, well, an air purifier, which I guess in theory it worked, but when it comes down to it, if I'm going to buy a vacuum that can also be a water purifier, or a vacuum and a water purifier for less than the cost of the vacuum that can also be a water purifier, I think I'm going to go with the latter option there. But I digress. This particular design of machines is actually still used today. Rainbow is still a very, very prominent company in the United States, and they still make vacuum cleaners that are virtually the same type of design as they were back in the 1940s. 50s, 60s, 70s, and all the way up. Now, the D3 was definitely a change from what they were originally doing. Now, in terms of rainbow canister history, they started off, like I said, as that sanitizer type machine. So the early Rexair vacuum cleaners that they were making that fell into that sanitizer type category. Those early models, those were looked kind of like a fire hydrant that sat on top of kind of a little metal basin. Usually came in either a gray hammer tone or a black hammer tone. I've serviced one of the gray ones in the past, but they're getting pretty hard to find nowadays. Then they moved into kind of the chrome dome and gold top era. Those were more like little R2D2 looking vacuum cleaners. The gold top was the very first that still bared the Rexair and Rainbow name simultaneously. But more of them I've seen have the Rexair name. But those were kind of touted as the first of that kind of new design. And then they went to the Chrome Dome, which was essentially the same thing, but had half of it chrome, half of it a orange hammer tone. Kind of like this, actually. As you can see, this is a model D1. We're going to talk about this in a few weeks, but this is what predecessed this particular machine for the most part. However, Rainbow was making changes. Now, these machines were in the 50s, so it kind of fit the bill with the chrome, weird colors and everything. Now, with the D2, which was exactly like the D1 for the most part, in came them utilizing Eureka power nozzles, kind of like I was mentioning. They had a contract with them so that Eureka would use their power nozzles, which, if you've seen any of the early ones, you can definitely tell that it was made by Eureka. It even had the same wood grain sticker that would go over the front of them, but that was to come to an end. Now, as soon as the D3 rolled around, they went and changed everything. They threw out the book, if you will, because the D3 was touted as the first all plastic rainbow vacuum cleaner because, well, if you can't tell, it still looks kind of like a droid, but it has clear plastic, plastic, everything's plastic on it for the most part. Now, of course, obviously, the motor and things like that, you're still going to have metal components. I mean, the wands, obviously, are still metal, but this one was notably regarded as the first of the all plastics. Now, semi-recently, within the past, year or so, I did a video on a Rainbow D4 SE, or Special Edition. If you haven't seen that one, go back and watch it. It was, well, all I can say is that it was a very eye-opening video to film. I've never actually been into rainbow vacuum cleaners, by the way. They've always just seemed like a complete gimmick to me because of the water filtration type of thing. If you don't know how rainbow vacuums work, essentially you fill up a water basin, and the idea is as you vacuum, the water traps the dirt and debris so that when you're done, you just dump out the water. There's no bag, there's no fuss, no muss, no dust. So either way, that's how they touted it. I, however, didn't believe in it because I've always thought that, with dust tends to not just float, not just sink, it just kind of hovers above the water. So really, you still have dust issues, but then you also have a tub of water that you have to deal with on top of that. Well, my mind was changed with the D4. That is a very, very powerful machine, does an excellent job on carpets and floors, and honestly, it looks really, really cool. Well, that's kind of what got me wanting one of these. So the D3, like I said, this was the earlier version of the D4, and it does a great job too. Now, these D3 machines came out and they sold like hotcakes. You had all kinds of different options for them. Of course, you had a full range of attachments, and this was also the introduction of the water mate attachment that would go with the rainbow vacuums from there going forward. And by that, that was their carpet cleaning attachment that would essentially hitch onto the hose and thus act as a carpet cleaner as well. Now, I've never used one of those. I actually have one for my D4, but we'll see Maybe we'll get that thing back out again, and we'll do a carpet cleaning attachment bonanza with like the Kirby's one, as well as like some other of the different carpet cleaning attachments that came out during the time frame um, around this time. But that's for a later time. The D3 honestly was a very, very good machine. I have no issues with it. A lot of people didn't like them because of the all plastic. They felt they were all cheap. However, this was really up to the salesman because rainbow vacuums were still being sold door to door at this time. Now, um, I mentioned it in the last video, but during these door to door salesmen would essentially try to keep everybody occupied during, well, the demonstration so that whomever was buying the vacuum had a perfect demonstration. So they would come with things like coloring books for the kiddos, and they would keep them busy essentially, well, while mom was watching the demonstration, you know, little Mary Sue is off in the other room with her crayons and coloring book, well, coloring pictures of the same vacuum cleaner that mom is getting ready to mortgage the house for. So it was a very interesting time frame. As far as I know, they don't do that anymore. But man, if I can find a rainbow coloring book on something like the SRX or whatever the new one is, that'd be pretty neat. I have one for the D4, which my wife got me. It was one of my first gifts that she ever gave me. So that's kind of how I knew about it. But no, rainbow vacuums. They've got a good name in my head now. They didn't used to, like I said, but honestly, they've turned out to be a really cool machine. Now, how did I find this machine? Rainbow vacuums are not rare. There are some select models that could be considered more rare just as they get older. However, um, these are not rare. The D3 is not a rare machine. They made millions of them. Same thing with the D4, all the D2 and the D1s. I want to say the D1 is probably less common because it can be confused with the D2. But either way, those machines are pretty common. The original Model D, the all gold one, I've only seen like maybe one come up for sale in the past couple of years. So they're getting a little bit harder to find, but these are not hard to find vacuum cleaners. I just want to make that very perfectly clear. However, there are certain models of these that are. Apparently, when these came out, the D3, there was one early one with an early version of the power nozzle that actually had a square tube that went to the bottom. Apparently, that was their new thought process of putting a square end tube to it, kind of like a Hoover Model 61 handle. I think it's dumb. They shouldn't have done it. They realized they shouldn't have done it, and they changed it. So now that early model of the D3 is considered extremely rare. But again, that was probably for a very limited run in the very, very beginning. So finding one of those is basically next to impossible. But that doesn't make this one super duper rare. Now, the D3, like I said, they made millions of them, and they pop up on Craigslist, OfferUp, and all those places all the time. However, because of what they are, like Kirby's, they're sold door to door, or they were sold door to door, and thus they fetch a higher price to the secondhand market. A brand new Kirby, if you were to see it on OfferUp or something like that, whoever is selling it probably was trying to get their money back as fast as they can because the depreciation on it is just crazy. So they're asking like $1,500. Same thing with a model that's probably 20 years old. They're still looking for $100, $150 for something that is well used and worn out for the most part. Same thing goes with rainbows and Rexairs. Now, these usually, and I was even just curious about looking at what they're normally going for. The cheapest one that I saw on, I think it was OfferUp, was like $80 that had just been marked down to 100. But I can tell you that it's not going to sell, and it won't sell. And this is the same conversation I had with the person that I got this from. It won't sell because so many were made, so many were sold, and so many other models have been out since it. Okay? This is the whole conversation about rare versus uncommon versus common as a Mustang. Like, these types of things are not rare. And just because somebody paid, a king's ransom for it when it first came out, does not indicate the same value down the road. Just like a car depreciates, a vacuum depreciates too. So when it came to rainbows, you can find this, a model that came out in 1980 and went till 86. People are still wanting almost $100 for one of these things. Now, the other 80s vacuum cleaners that I can name off top of my head, certain Hoovers and of course Kirby's, you can pick them up for 20 bucks and they will outlast anything else. Which, that's fine. If you want an older machine, that's great. I love using older machines because I know I can fix them and, well, they do a really good job. This one, no different. However, I was never going to pay the crazy astronomical asking prices for a D3, which was kind of sad. I got my D4. That was a gift from a friend of my wife's, and they were the original owners. That's how I got that one. This little D1 that I just brought out here, that was another gift from a friend of mine. I also have a D2 in my collection. I think I got it for $20, and it came with all of the attachments, the power nozzle, everything. So I was not going to, pony up the astronomical prices for one of these. Now, probably in other areas of the United States, you can pick these up for pretty cheap. Heck, you can get them trade in from a vacuum shop probably for practically nothing because they just need to move it out. It's a trade in. They, whoever brought it in and maybe they wanted to use it for parts. But either way, I was not going to pay the prices for these things just so that I could say I had one. So developments changed. And my good friend Mitchell Armstrong, who is also here on YouTube, he and I had made some deals, and he was in a vacuum shop, Everett Vacuum, up north in Everett, Washington. Had this one on their sales floor, and Mitchell had been visiting there and asked about the pricing. He asked me what would be kind of a fair price. I told him based on what I see with these things and how much they go for online, and gave a very honest appraisal of this. And unfortunately, they weren't able to strike a deal that day. Well, developments happened over the next day or so after that, and Mitchell ended up making a deal with them for this, and then a deal with me in order to get it. So, he was able to bring this one home as well as the little D1. And of course, I was going to make a video on it. So that's why I told Mitchell, I said, hey, like, I can't wait to get this thing. So let's get this thing here so I can make a video because I'm super stoked. I really wanted this model. That's the problem with some of these premium vacuums. If you really like them, or if you get into them, well, you got to be used to paying them premium secondhand prices, unfortunately. But anyways, so yes, a big thank you to my good friend Mitchell. He did really hook me up with this one, and I'm really happy with it. And I absolutely cannot wait to fire it up for you guys. So let's get on to our run demo and see how this thing does. Well, everybody, we have the Rainbow D3 all plugged in, ready to go, and water basin filled, so we are ready for dust capturing. So let's get on to this, and, well, we'll see how this thing does on the floor.
Well, folks, the D3 did seem to do a really, really good job on the floor. And that power nozzle just seems to do fantastic. So let's see what we captured in the dustbin. Well, now, keeping in mind that I have already vacuumed this area several times today, and this is the same thing that I was talking about in the last rainbow video. Now, I don't think you can quite tell, however, that water is all black. That is just gross. And like I said, I vacuumed this area shortly before this, just to make sure that there wasn't a ton of stuff in the floor. But man, I am shocked again at how good these things perform sometimes, as well as how much they really do collect. Like I said, I have never been the biggest fan of rainbows, but boy, is this kind of result really changed my mind. So, well, I hope y'all enjoyed our little run demo for today.
Well, everybody, we have come to the end of our video for today. I do really hope you enjoyed our little video on the 1981 Rainbow D3. It is a really, really cool vacuum. I know there's not a lot of interesting information out on this one, but I'd like to think the 80s time frame did have a very certain look to it, and this being it, you know. While there was technological changes all throughout the 70s, 80s, into the 90s, these particular machines were making their strides as best they could, but at the same time, still pertaining to the simple design that they were known for. Now, Rainbow, of course, is still around, and they still do make vacuum cleaners that still utilize the same dust capture system with the water basin. Now, others have been around during the time frame that Rainbow's been around, and they have made adjustments to this type of design, and in some case, some better, some worse. But it is still a method in which they are utilizing for dust capture and cleanup. Now, the D3, while it may not be the most notable, and it may not be even the most notable to me, I wanted it in order to complete the set. Now, I do still need a Model D gold top one to go with it, as well as the other ones, but for the time being, I'm very happy with my D1 through 4, and that will not change anytime soon. So, but um, again, a huge, huge thank you to Mr. Mitchell Armstrong out here on YouTube as well. He has been a good friend of mine over the years and helped me acquire some of my absolute dream machines. So, another big, big thank you to him. And of course, definitely go check his channel out. Um, and one last thing before we go, I did want to also emphasize again, if you are looking for a certain vintage vacuum cleaner, I come across them all the time, and you may be in luck because I might even have one that you're looking for sale. So I have a lot of duplicates right now, and I have a lot of machines that I've gotten in on sale or trade that, well, frankly, I'm just running out of space. So I need to get rid of some stuff. So if there is something in particular that you are looking for, definitely reach out to me and let me know. Um, Find me on YouTube or even go down to my eBay profile and we can chat more in there. Um, but either way, you guys all have a great rest of your weekend as well as a great next week. We, of course, will be back same time, same place, same guy, different vacuum or vacuums, and we'll catch you again next time. Have a great rest of your day, y'all.